Good morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are. I'm Paul Clark and welcome to my studio. So what have we got for you lovely lot today? Well, we're just back from a painting retreat down in the West Country in Devon in the Dartmoor National Park, and what a great bunch of people we met as well. So we're going to be having a go at painting this lovely little stream with rocks and a little waterfall. So come and join me and we'll paint this step by step together. But just before the tutorial, a very short 2-minute video of our trip, so I hope you enjoy that. So the award-winning cottages at Blackadon Farm, run by Michael and Nicola, sit on the edge of Dartmoor National Park in Devon, southwest England. And what a wonderful, friendly group of artists we had. They came from all corners of the world, from the US, Australia, Germany, and of course the UK. And off we trekked for our plein air painting day, with so many wonderful scenes to paint. We were so lucky with the weather too, considering this is September in the UK. And for those a little more adventurous, we hiked high up into the moors, and it was a little windswept, but we had stunning views. And there may still be a few artists lost up there somewhere. Every day we had step-by-step lessons in the studio with a giant screen so all could paint along. An afternoon journal making session led by the very talented Miranda Sykes, who very kindly sang a few songs for us.
I can think of better things that hands can make and hearts can say.
And of course a quick walk down to the local pub. He even had an impromptu songs from musicals quiz night. Well done, Joey.
And bright, you look happy to meet me.
Will we do it again next year? I expect so. Watch this space for details. So here is the reference photo taken by me, which I have changed considerably, reducing the number of rocks and trees and making more of a feature of the stream. Now it was late in the afternoon when I took this, so the sun was very low, creating that gorgeous patch of light on the bank. Okay, so for today's materials, my paper is some Bockingford Rough. It's £200, nice and thick, won't need stretching, but of course any decent watercolour paper will do. My colours today, I'm using a fairly limited palette of cadmium yellow, cobalt blue, burnt sienna, burnt umber and Payne's grey, and just 2 brushes from my range, my number 12 and a number 6 round. Here is the pencil sketch, and as always this is free to download from my website, link in the description below. Off we go, and I'm starting with some cleanish water and just putting it in random spots. Then straight in with some cobalt blue, straight into the wet. So for all these trees in the background, I want to send them into the distance, so I'm painting everything here wet in wet, and I'm using my normal green mix of cadmium yellow and cobalt blue, varying the strength and depth of the green just by adding in more cobalt blue. And here splatting straight into the wet with a very bluey green. And while I've still got some blue on my palette, I'm painting in a very watery light wash of cobalt blue into the stream here, picking up some texture of the paper. Always trying to paint with quick, loose brush strokes. And to bring out the top of that waterfall there, I'm just adding in a nice dark value of bluey green, straight into the wet again. So on this bank here, I'm starting by just painting a simple, very light base wash all over this area, but being careful to leave a nice light area in the middle there where the light is hitting that bank. And I'm using some burnt sienna, but you could use some light red or Indian red if you don't have it. And while it's still wet, just adding in a few hints of green. Now for the rocks, and again I'm just putting in a very light base wash, this time using some Payne's Grey, and still using my number 12 brush. And you can see from the reference photo that a lot of the rocks are covered in moss, so I'm dropping some green straight into the wet. And then just continuing on and painting all the rocks in exactly the same way. And remembering that this is just a base wash, we're going to be coming back on top with a lot of more detail later. And of course we do need to consider that light is hitting the top of these rocks, so I'm just lifting out some highlights with a damp brush. And while these washes are still damp, I'm just splatting in some nice strong value Payne's Grey. You won't get the randomness if you try and paint in any other way. And here I'm just sprinkling in very sparingly a few granules of table salt to create some extra texture. So now we need to let this totally dry, so it's a perfect time for a short break. How about a glass of Dartmoor Brewery Legend Ale? Now starting with this bank, it's a slightly stronger mix than the previous wash below of burnt sienna, and of course I'm leaving those gaps for the light which is hitting the bank. And here for some darker shadows, a nice dollop of burnt umber. So a little more about the Dartmoor National Park. Now it covers nearly 600 square miles of rugged but stunning scenery, with a hugely diverse landscape characterised by lovely green valleys, rolling hills, vast granite tors, wild ponies and crystal clear streams and rivers. Now when I took this picture I was really amazed at how clear the water was. Perfect for the water to use in your watercolour paintings. And the moors are steeped in history, with Bronze Age settlements, prehistoric stone rows, old bridges, and is famous for being the location of Sherlock Holmes' Hound of the Baskervilles. Truly, this really was an amazing place to visit. You know, I think I should get a job at the Devon Tourist Board. This side of the bank, all the same colours, and letting them mix and blend on the paper. A few sprinkles of table salt again. Splatting into the damp here a little burnt umber. And because you'd pick up a little reflection from the bank above, I'm just painting into the area where the water's still, a light wash of burnt sienna. Now for the trees, using my number 12 brush and some burnt umber, a nice wet wash, as few brush strokes as possible, dropping in some Payne's Grey into the shadow side, into the wet. And always remember, we use the photo reference just purely as a guide. We're never going to replicate all of those different trees and branches, just give it your own interpretation. And lifting out here with a damp brush just to create a nice soft highlight. Now for the tree foliage, and I'm using my normal green mix and the dry brush technique, keeping the brush nice and flat to the paper, picking up the texture. And here, using the tip of my number 12 brush to create individual leaves using a simple one dab stroke. And here I've mixed a much yellowy green and I'm just splatting in this leaf texture. Next, I'm using my smaller number 6 brush just to put in these finer detail branches, using mixes of Payne's Grey and burnt umber. Here, a quick dry brush stroke to give this trunk here a little bit of texture. And here I'm leaving plenty of gaps in these branches as some of the leaves will come in front. And for these overhanging branches, they are in front of this large tree, so they can be painted directly over top. And here, to get those nice tapered ends to these branches, I just lift the pressure off my brush with each stroke. Now for these trees here, I'm using a much lighter mix of burnt umber just to help give that sense of distance. And I always like to create a soft edge by just smudging with my finger. Next for the bank here, and I'm building up the layers by painting on a transparent wash of burnt umber. And a little bit of dry brush to keep that texture going. Dry brush again here, just to give that illusion of detail. Now for the water, and I'm painting in various shades of green and brown, again using that dry brush technique, picking up the texture of the paper. And I'm making sure I'm keeping all of these brush strokes as flat and as level as possible. And I'm now using my number 6 brush to paint in this little waterfall. Remember, leave plenty of white areas. And the same for this waterfall here in the distance. And this is where you can use your own artistic license, because if you look at the original photo, this was some sort of metal grill here, but this works so much better. Okay, so now for all the details on the rocks, and I'm starting by wetting the bottom half of this rock with clean water. Now for the colours on my rocks, there's far too many mixes to list them all, but basically I'm using a combination of my Payne's Grey, burnt umber and my green mix from cobalt blue and cadmium yellow. So I'm using the dark shadow colour of the rock above to give the definition and shape of the rock below, and I'm mixing in on the paper wet in wet all the colours that I just mentioned. And I'm generally trying to keep the lighter values to the top of each rock. Next, I'm taking a plastic credit card and scraping and dragging the damp paint. And this is a great way of getting those sharp, hard angles that you see in rocks. And it's important to remember that using this credit card technique, the paint needs to be in the damp stage. If it's too wet, it just doesn't work. And I'm continuing painting all of the rest of the rocks in exactly the same way, starting off with clean water, then dropping in those colours wet in wet. And although I'm painting fairly dark values on top of the washes that have dried, it's still transparent enough to see some of the texture through.
Didn't think it'd go this fast. Goodbye to this house we thought would always last. And this is where Dad's garden grows. Summer haze, my reading place, and late night tiptoes. And I know the memories are with me, even when you move to a town that is new. Guess I tend to hold on too strong, but you're always home. You're always home to me. Up those gray steel wooden stairs, me and Jess play pretend of time traveling, company around the table, seat by the windows where I learned piano. And I'm scared things change too quickly. The time tales from mom sing loud in my heart. And I know I'm not alone. You're
Always painting in those nice dark values to give you the shape of the rock below.
to me.
And here I'm using a lot more burnt umber in the mix to get some warmer value rocks in the foreground.
So we'll make room for something new. So I'm not little anymore. I'll always need you.
I really don't think there's any other way of getting some really realistic rocks so quickly and spontaneously.
Memories are with me, even when I've grown to a place of my own. Please remember, I love you forever. You're always home. You're always home to me.
A little bit of flicking here with my number 12 brush just to give the illusion of lots of little tiny stones and rocks. So now that's dried, I can see I've lost some of that greenness that the original photo had. So I'm just coming back in with my normal green mix of cadmium yellow and cobalt blue, nice and watery, letting the existing washes show through. And finally, for this big rock in the corner, painting in exactly the same way, lots of lovely wet washes with my green mix and some Payne's grey, just letting them mix on the paper. Few more little details using my number 6 brush and some burnt umber. Perhaps a few more stones in the water, but I am very conscious of not overworking this and putting in unnecessary detail. And here I'm just putting in some very watery washes of green and some cobalt blue. I just felt there was just slightly too much of that white area. A watery wash of the burnt sienna too. And now it's mixed media time, and I'm using a creamy coloured Faber-Castell pastel pencil just to add in a few little highlights here and there. Little white gel pen here for my signature. There we go, all done, and this one took just under 3 hours. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and you'll give it a go. Remember, you don't have to copy my painting exactly, just use it as a guide, have fun and enjoy the experience. And a quick announcement, there won't be a video again next week because by the time this goes out we'll be in Portugal on a painting retreat, but we'll be back again in 2 weeks' time. So, as always, please don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already, it is free. Leave a comment, I do read every single one. Can't always reply to them all. And of course, I look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks' time for another Watercolour Wednesday. Take care now, everyone. Bye for now.